Hey everybody, welcome back to the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast, with me, your host, Harry Symeou. I've got no idea what was going on with my camera at the very beginning of this stream, so a big thank you to everybody who stayed logged in, who stayed patient. Hope you're all good, hope you're all well. We've just won another North London derby. Does it really matter about Harry Symeou's camera issues? Who cares? We're here to celebrate. We're here to reflect on a really big result for the Gunners, even this early in the season. Nobody can deny it. This result means a lot. Nobody can deny that Mikel Arteta's side showed a steel, showed a resilience, showed a bit of an edge as well when they needed to, and turned up at White Hart Lane and won on Spurs' patch for the third time in a row. Brilliant performance, brilliant result. We'll get into it all, we'll break it all down on this episode of the Chronicles of a Gooner. Hope you're all good, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me on this Sunday evening. Apologies for the issues, as I say at the beginning. For those of you that are watching us on the live stream, I literally have no idea what happened. Normally when I cut scene, there it is, the camera's shining bright on me, and for some reason it was a blank screen. I tried it 2 or 3 times, wiggled a few things about, and it seems to be working. Hopefully it lasts the duration of the episode. Lots and lots of you with us live at the moment, which is amazing to see. If I could just ask, if you haven't done so already, guys, please do leave a like on the video. It really does help. And if you're a regular viewer or listener, you'll know exactly what you're going to get, right? So you don't need to wait to check or find out. You know what we're about. You know what kind of breakdown we're going to bring you here live tonight. Remember, get involved in the live chat. I'd love to hear from you guys throughout as well. I've got the live chat open in front of me, which is great. In fact, let's dive into the live chat first of all, shall we? Let's have a look at some of what you guys are saying this evening. Lots and lots of positive messages, lots of people basking in the result tonight. Richie says, it's a great day, it's a great day, it's a great day. Afsar says, but who will stop Manchester City? They are a juggernaut, incredible and invincible. Don't let Manchester City's relentlessness and brilliance get you down on a day like today. Today is a day of celebration. Today is a day of joy. Today is a day of getting one over that lot. And just ignore it, enjoy it, I should say, rather than ignore it. You don't want to do that. Lap it up, take it all in, because they really did think, like they literally thought that they were going to turn up today and they were going to roll us over because of the injuries, because of the suspension to Declan Rice, because of the fact that we had a substitutes bench, wait for it, that had 5 18-year-olds or below. Like 5. That's how thin we were today. That's how many bodies, key players, key components we had missing today. And we still turned up and we still beat them on their own patch. Let's go back into the live chat for a couple more comments, and then I'm going to dive into my breakdown of the game. Gunner329 says, you know what? Getting some of these tough away fixtures done early can feel nice. Results have gone our way so far. Yeah, we've been looking at it, haven't we, since the start of the season and thinking, oh God, what a terrible start. What an awful way to begin the campaign, and there's a good chance that we end up loads behind Manchester City. And we'll talk about the impact that this result has on our plans for Manchester City, because I do think it has an impact. I do think the fact that we've won this game, I'm not saying that you don't want to beat Manchester City, but it does kind of give you a little bit of leeway, doesn't it? Like the fact that you've not fallen a further 3 points behind them by losing today, or even 2 by drawing. It means that, a draw at the Etihad, I think, would be a very, very good result. Now, if we were to go there and win, that would be unbelievable. But if we were to lose as well, the difference between a defeat and a draw is only a single point. And given that we've won at Spurs and we've won at Villa, and they haven't been to any of those 2 places yet, even that wouldn't be a disaster. So today's win was really, 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 really significant. I'm going to come back to your comments and questions in a little bit. Don't worry, I will make sure I do that. But I just want to kind of start off with what this victory means. I've talked about the knock-on effect that it has going forward and maybe how I look at the Manchester City game a little bit differently now. But for a long time now, we've looked at this Arsenal side and we've spoken about togetherness. We've spoken about their commitment to one another, the organisation, the fact that as a unit, we're far more cohesive than we've been in a long, long time. And this was further proof of that today. We had a torrid international break. We lost our captain, Martin Odegaard. And I know Mikel Arteta was kind of teasing people on Friday, wasn't he, with his comments in the press conference. But the truth is, and the reality is, guys, he was never going to play today. Ricardo Calafiori, I hoped, would be back in the picture, but he wasn't. He too was missing. It was great that Gabriel Jesus was back, but for him and Raheem Sterling, we had a bunch of kids on the bench. Okay, Jakub Kiwior was there too. Neto's no spring chicken. But all the rest of the subs, as I say, were either 18 years old or below. There were kids on there who many people would never have heard of before today. So that shows you and puts into context the situation that we had to deal with today. Mikel Arteta spoke about it himself. He talked about the fact that he kind of had one game plan in his head, and when all the injuries started happening, we had the Odegaard thing, we had that really disappointing red card shown to Declan Rice. By the way, I've seen 2 or 3 examples at the absolute minimum, and I've only watched Match of the Day from Saturday's games, but we've seen at least 2 or 3 examples of people kicking the ball away and not getting booked. Yes, only Arsenal players appear to get booked for, what was the phrase they used in the commentary today? Delaying the restart. Yeah, it's only an Arsenal thing. Only Arsenal players are punished for that. Anyway, this wasn't a story today of Arsenal turning up, outplaying Spurs on their own patch and cruising to victory. This was a story of unity, of commitment, of togetherness, and of organisation. And it was a story of adaptation too, because Arsenal had to change it. As I said, they had to play in a different way. They had to funnel their play through different areas of the pitch. They had to change the shape of the midfield because, of course, leaving Thomas Partey, for example, with lots of big spaces to manage without having the legs of Declan Rice alongside him, that's really, really risky. And then you put Jorginho in. Why'd you put Jorginho in? Well, we didn't really have all that much choice, if we're being honest. A Jorginho who so many people have been critical of over the years, who was criticised in the lead up to the game by some as well, came in, and yeah, on a couple of occasions, you could see that he was run ragged a little bit. You could see that managing those big spaces was a problem for him. But generally, I thought he had a really, really good game. And we'll come on to talk about individuals in a bit. But the point I'm trying to make here is, guys, is that Mikel Arteta couldn't play with the same midfield shape and system that we normally do because the personnel that was available to us was so different. We had literally Jorginho as a kind of more deeper lying midfield player. And then it was either throw the 17-year-old kid, Ethan Nwaneri, in, which I think would have been a huge risk. Really encouraged by what I saw from him, by the way, when he came on. But it would have been a risk to start him. Or he had to use one of his forwards. And in the end, it was the latter that Arsenal went with. And we'll talk a little bit about how that worked and stuff too. Look, just a few days ago, I think it was on Thursday, when Mikel Arteta's contract renewal was announced. Believe it or not, there were dissenting voices. Yes. Not a lot of people, but there were a fair few who were on social media giving it the big time. Why have we given this failure of a manager a new contract? Today you saw why Mikel Arteta is fully deserving of the contract, because we've got a steel about us. There's a togetherness, there's a unity. I keep using those words tonight because I think they're really, really important, and they really do sum up what I'm watching and what I'm seeing when I turn up to see this Arsenal side nowadays. Not only that though, we saw an ability to come up with a game plan even when the tools available to you are very different to the ones that you would normally use. Let's not forget that in the lead up to this game, when everybody was discussing the different midfield combinations that you could see today, some were suggesting that actually maybe the best way to go was to put Alexander Zinchenko in midfield, something that Mikel Arteta has been very reluctant to do. I'll give you that. But not even he was available because he is injured too. Yes, surprise, surprise. Anyway, let's start with the team then, the lineup that Mikel Arteta picked, because it was basically the exact same 11 that I told you I would go with in the lead up to this game. So when he named the 11 and when it came out, there was no complaints from me. None whatsoever. I did wonder, because of the way that the club had named the team, whether Havertz was going to play the furthest forward or if he was going to drop into that pocket. Now, for me, the best thing to do was for him to play slightly deeper, and I think we did see that generally, although at times Arsenal's shape kind of changed. A lot of the time you saw Arsenal in this kind of more 4-4-2-like shape where Havertz and Trossard were kind of playing as a two. Jorginho and Partey were sitting square with one another like a double pivot. Saka and Martinelli put an awful lot of work in to get up and down the pitch wherever possible, and the back four was able to play like a conventional back four. And when you've got that kind of 4-4-2 shape, there isn't really the need for the fullbacks to go searching and for the fullbacks to go drifting into those more central areas. So we saw a lot less of that today from Jurrien Timber, but that meant that we saw a lot more of this, a lot more of him getting up that left-hand side, supporting Martinelli wherever possible, and equally Martinelli was always back and always on hand to support him when he needed it too. So I thought all round the system worked really, really well. Now this 4-4-2 thing that we saw when we were out of possession, sometimes in possession too, but that we spotted on numerous occasions during this game, is not a new thing. We did it quite a bit last season during that period where Jorginho came into the side alongside Declan Rice. That was kind of the way that Mikel Arteta just tweaked and adjusted things in order to ensure that we weren't exposed by Jorginho's lack of ability. Now, he was the captain today, and it was a captain-like performance, I thought. Yeah, as I've already mentioned, he had a couple of hairy moments, particularly at the start of the second half, around that time where he picked up the yellow card. But the leadership was there. It was clear for everybody to see. He was talking, he was organising all the time. And I was really, really pleased by what I saw from him. So I called the 11 100% right. I said that I would drop Havertz as the slightly deeper one because I thought that needed to happen. I felt that if the midfield needed support, he was far better equipped to provide that physically than Leandro Trossard was. But yeah, really, really good stuff from the guys, because they showed that they can be, when they need to be, very, very adaptable. Going back to my notes just for a second, because I want to make sure I don't miss anything here. I want to make sure that I give you guys the most comprehensive breakdown I can of this fixture. I'm just going to ask you one more time though. If you haven't done so already, please do leave a like on the video, guys. It really, really, really does help. Subscribe to the channel as well if you're brand spanking new, as we continue on our journey towards 40,000. We're a fair way off of that, but I'm hoping by the end of the season we might be able to achieve that. So yeah, like, subscribe, all the rest of it. If you're listening on audio, please do leave us a review as well. Just a heads up as well, while I remember, for those of you that aren't already signed up, you can sign up to the Chronicles of a Gooner podcast on Patreon. It's patreon.com/the Chronicles of a Gooner. The link is in the description below. And after every game, hopefully within about an hour of the full-time whistle, and it does vary a little bit just depending on what my work commitments are around the game. But what we do, at least within the first couple of hours, is provide you with a match day reaction episode. It's normally about 15 to 20 minutes long, sometimes slightly shorter, just depending on how much there is to talk about from the game. But I dropped an episode of that earlier on today. It was around about 45 minutes after the full-time whistle, and I did share with you guys my kind of immediate reaction to the game, some of the key incidents. Go over and check that out if you're interested in supporting the pod. You can sign up. I did make today's episode, because it was the North London derby and because I was feeling really good, available to free members too. That won't be the case after every single game. Now and again we'll do that, so that those of you that are free members can get a taste for what's available if you're a paid member and you're supporting the channel that way. So I've unlocked this one for our free members. You do need to sign up even as a free member though to access it. Check it out. Let me know what you think. And if you're interested, then yeah, your support would be very, very much appreciated. Okay, let's get back to how the game sort of panned out. I put in the title, no midfield, no problem. Literally. Like, it didn't... You wouldn't have looked at that game. If you was an alien and you landed down on Earth and you were watching a game of football for the first time, you couldn't have told that Arsenal's midfield was not their first choice one, and in fact, probably nowhere near it. I think it's fair to say that Tottenham's midfield and the makeup of that, it helped us. I don't know if Ange Postecoglou was doing an Ange Postecoglou and sort of falling into a trap and showing himself to be incredibly naive again, because, that's something that's been leveled at him in terms of criticism on numerous occasions. People often say that type of thing around his management. And I thought today he picked a really attack-minded midfield. He put Bentancur in at the 6, and then he played Kulusevski and Maddison in and around them. And obviously Kulusevski and Maddison, really, really good on the ball. And when they get into the final third, they can cause problems. But defensively, I think they struggled a little bit. They did leave Bentancur isolated at times, and that's why Arsenal were able to break on a few occasions, or part of the reason at least why they were able to break. Although they were tending to use those wide areas, there was that avenue through the middle as well, because Bentancur, to me, isn't really a natural 6. So, yeah, not a massive fan of the way Ange Postecoglou approached the game. Well, actually, as an Arsenal fan, I'm quite happy with it. But I think if I were a Spurs fan, I'd be a little bit frustrated by that. Did he have many options? I'm not sure, but still, it just felt a little bit lightweight. And I think that kind of played into our hands, given that we obviously were lacking a bit in midfield ourselves. I've talked about the bench and the weakness on the bench. I've talked about the 4-4-2 shape off the ball. There were a couple of big moments in the first half, and I just want to run through some of them. There was the one, of course, where Ben White played a really silly, foolish pass inside. And thankfully for us, William Saliba's an absolute animal, and was able to get out to Dominic Solanke super quick. And before Solanke could even take a touch and set himself, William Saliba had closed the door on him. Unbelievable recovery. And if I were Ben White, I'd be buying William Saliba a drink tonight, because he got him out of a spot of bother there. We also created a couple of opportunities ourselves. There was a Kai Havertz header. I think there was a couple of Kai Havertz headers in the first half. But probably the most notable opportunity that we created was the one where Gabriel Martinelli got in down that left-hand side. It was a really clever ball from Leandro Trossard. And when Martinelli got in, he kind of had the option of going across and trying to find Saka, who, from watching it back, had kind of got across Destiny Udogie, but he seemed to want to take it on himself. He seemed to want to go for the kind of like Thierry Henry-esque finish. And yeah, he just didn't execute it in the way that he would have liked, and it was quite a comfortable save from Vicario. Over the course of last week, I was asked to participate in multiple combined 11 discussions. You know those things that the kids love these days? Pick a combined 11 from these two teams that hate each other's guts and are going to be playing each other at the weekend. That's what I was asked to do. And there were two selections that I made that were very, very unpopular, not with the Spurs fans. Well, they were with the Spurs fans, but I expected them to be unpopular with the Spurs fans. But there were two selections that I made that were very unpopular with those that are supposed to be neutral, and I couldn't, for the life of me, understand why. I just couldn't figure it out. So those two selections were Raya over Vicario and Gabriel over Van de Ven. If you're offering, like, if I'm picking a combined 11, I want to pick the best team, right? So you need to give me a player that I think is better than the one I already have for me to pick the Spurs man over the Arsenal man. That's how it works. Who on earth is picking Guillermo Vicario over David Raya? And who on earth is picking Mickey van de Ven over Gabriel? Because today I thought you got sight of the levels and the difference in levels between our centre-half and our goalkeeper and theirs. Now, I'm not saying Van de Ven was to blame necessarily for the goal or anything like that, but I found it really strange that throughout the course of that week, I thought I was making valid points saying, no, actually, Big Gabby's pretty bloody good. And actually, David Raya has really established himself at Arsenal now, and he's brilliant. And instead, the responses I was getting were, no, you're mad, you're biased, etc., etc. But anyway, we saw why I don't particularly rate Guillermo Vicario in the first half. But then I didn't feel like we really applied that pressure often enough on him. We had a corner shortly after the one where he came flapping out, and I really enjoyed Gary Neville's bit of commentary where he said he's coming out flapping. Look at him, he looks nervous, he looks uncomfortable. It's like he's got frogs in his pants, I think is what he said. I mean, not the kind of commentary we've become accustomed to, but very, very funny. I enjoyed that bit, I have to say. Anyway, I think we saw in the first half that he cannot dominate his 6-yard box. We saw it last season. We've seen it before with Guillermo Vicario. Lots of clubs. I remember watching a game where they played Everton last season. They looked at that and thought, well, if we just put blockers in front of him and we get people in and around him, we can have a lot of joy from that. And that's exactly what Sean Dyche's Everton did. So, you know, you always knew that that was a weakness. And in the lead up to this game where people had been saying, oh, you've got no Odegaard, you've got no Rice, you've got no Merino, you've got no Calafiori. How are you going to win this? I kept saying, I still think we have enough. Obviously, it's not ideal, and the situation is not one that we would have chosen to be in. But having what we had available, I still felt that Arsenal could hurt Tottenham, and in two ways in particular. And those two ways for me were the direct counter-attacks, the balls over the top, the long balls, bypassing their press, trying to bypass their mid-block, which I thought at times we did, where we were a little bit more direct and forward-thinking and tried to work the ball out, especially into those wide areas, as early as we possibly could. But for some poor passing, I think we could have created way more openings than we did. And the other way I felt that we could hurt them was from set pieces. Tottenham are notoriously bad under Ange Postecoglou at defending set pieces. And lo and behold, that's how we won the game again. Should Martinelli, when he was played through by Leandro Trossard, have squared that to Bukayo Saka? I think it's very easy to look at the replay, see that Bukayo Saka had got across Destiny Udogie and say yes. But I'm not really going to go in too hard on Gabriel Martinelli for that, because I played as a forward. Obviously not at Premier League level, but if I was in that position, there is no way on God's green earth I'm even looking at what's going on across field to me. I'm taking that on. I'd assess my own situation. I'd assess the angle that I've got, and I would have concluded in that scenario that the angle was good enough for me to justify taking that on myself. So yeah, I don't really blame Martinelli for that, to be honest. I know that not everybody was too happy with it. There was a flashpoint in the first half as well after Jurien Timber's challenge. Lots of people suggesting, some of the pundits at half-time on Sky suggesting that actually that should have been a red card. Have a day off, come on. No way. No way are we actually saying that should have been a red card from Jurien Timber. I'll be honest with you guys, I didn't even think it was a foul. Genuinely, I didn't even think it was a foul. I thought he put his foot on top of the ball. He never followed through in a dangerous manner or anything like that. And yeah, there was no reason for that to have come under as much scrutiny as it has. So yeah, a little bit surprised by that. I wouldn't have booked him. I wouldn't have even given the free kick. But if you had to, because you felt that maybe just went a little bit over the top of the ball, then fine, yellow card is cool. I'm not going to argue too hard about that. But was it any more than that? Absolutely not. Sorry if I seem a little bit distracted just then. As you guys know, I'm a big Serie A fan, and I've got the Monza Inter game on in front of me. And Monza have just scored on the 80th minute to take the lead against Inter. So they could potentially be picking up their first win of the season against the Serie A favourites for the title. Managed Monza, by the way, by Alessandro Nesta, who I had the pleasure of interviewing last June, I think it was, at the UEFA Champions League final in Istanbul. And I thought he was so cool to talk to, and a real football man. So I'm delighted that he's got that, really delighted. But anyway, that's not what I'm here to talk about. What was I saying? That flashpoint. So after that whole incident occurred, and you know, Guillermo Vicario comes sprinting out, giving it the big man, and runs up to Jurien Timber and basically gets put in his place by the Dutchman, who grabs him by the shirt with two hands as if to say, get the off of me. It felt like that was a big moment in the game for me. I remember people saying in previous games where we've gone to Anfield, for example, that we've had a problem because we ourselves have got involved in something that maybe was avoidable and we've ignited the crowd. The Tottenham crowd, they don't get ignited by things like that. They might if they are seeing their players come out on top, if they're seeing their players, getting one up on the opposition. But that really wasn't what happened in this scenario. Guillermo Vicario, big old goalkeeper, comes sprinting over to Jurrien Timber as if to try and intimidate him in front of the white wall, as they call it, at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. What does Timber do? He responds by sending a message back that says, "Not with me, mate. Not today. Don't try it because you're not going to get anywhere." And then a load of other Arsenal players come streaming over and it ends up becoming a bit of pushing and shoving. Nothing really major, nothing that was worthy of any kind of further investigation. But I really liked that from Jurrien Timber. And I loved the way his teammates came in to support him as well. And what it kind of said was, we don't care where we're playing. We don't care that we're here. You are not going to bully us. And a goalkeeper, a big old lump of a goalkeeper coming sprinting out like that, totally unnecessary on Vicario's part. And I actually felt like Vicario was a bit rattled today because he would have gone into this game fully aware of, what the narrative was after the game last season. Arsenal come here, they dominate us with set pieces. They dominate us aerially. They're clinical, we're not. The theme throughout the season so far for Tottenham has been, very, very nice in possession. Lots of tidy passing and good moves and fluid football at times. But guess what? They've got no end product. And I feel like that was maybe weighing on their minds a little bit again today. And I talked about it on 90 Min the other day and I got absolutely battered in the comments for saying it. But there is an inferiority complex when you are Tottenham and you're up against Arsenal, particularly during this period. Yes, okay, Ange Postecoglou got a draw at the Emirates Stadium last season. But he got his backside handed to him at Spurs in the reverse fixture. His team were completely toothless today and beaten by a much better organised and far more committed side than theirs that had a clinical edge to them. So I do think that inferiority thing that maybe disappeared a little bit under Maurizio Pochettino, if I'm being completely honest, where Spurs were really competitive with us, where Harry Kane was turning up, derby after derby, delivering. I do think that's kind of seeped back in because when they went a goal down, the crowd went flat, didn't it? It was as dead as a doornail. It was completely flat. And there was no sign at any point of it sort of getting back to maybe what it was right at the start of the game where Spurs were enjoying a decent period. And look, let me be honest, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that Arsenal were totally dominant throughout and never had those periods where we looked a little bit vulnerable, where we looked stretched, where we looked like we were hanging on a little bit. But in those moments, you need your defensive players to step up. Unfortunately, and thankfully for us today, ours did. So that was kind of the first half. The second half, for me, was similar in the sense of I didn't think we started great. Like I thought, let me rephrase that because I'm saying I don't think we started great. But I also think that it's because Tottenham come on strong at the beginning of halves. And so you have to accept that if they're coming out at 100% and you're coming out at kind of 70% and you're just looking to ride out that period of time, or you know that that's what they're going to do, and you're kind of banking on being able to withstand that pressure with a view to growing stronger as the half goes on, then obviously that's the way it's going to go. So yeah, we had to ride out a kind of difficult period, I thought, at the first half. At the start of the second half, I beg your pardon. But again, just like in the first half, we grew in confidence and we managed to settle things down. And we started to, move into a far more comfortable position. It was one of those games where at the time, I was having kittens. I really was. I was watching it and I was so stressed. And even more so, Inter have equalised. For God's sake, is that Dumfries? Yep, Denzel Dumfries at the far post on 87 minutes. Lucky Inter. Anyway, there were times in that second half where I was super stressed, even more so after we scored. And I know that sounds mad, right? Because if you're winning the game and then you concede, then you're drawing the game. So it's much less of a problem than if you're 0-0 and you concede a late goal, right? So theoretically, this doesn't make any sense, and I totally accept that. But had the game had just kind of fizzled out and ended up being a 0-0 draw, given the problems that we had, the players that we had missing, I would have looked at it and just gone, yeah, fine. Like, it's a decent result. You know, away at White Hart Lane, raucous atmosphere. They come out fast at the start of both halves. We had to do a fair bit of defending. They had way more attempts at goal than us. I would have just gone, fine, cool. Like, I wouldn't have been happy because, as I've talked about it already, we've got that huge game coming up at the Etihad next weekend that we need, or that we'd have definitely needed to get something out of had we not won today. So this whole situation makes me feel better about the trip to the Etihad, because it feels like, I don't want to say a free hit, because it's not that. But it feels like the kind of game that if we did lose would not define our season at this stage. Whereas had we lost today and then lost at City, all of a sudden then you're 8 points behind them and it looks really, really tough. So my outlook changes. But because I felt like we had come there, we'd done what we needed to do, we'd got ourselves into a position where we were winning, I was really nervous about the last kind of 25, 30 minutes if you include the stoppage time. It was really bloody stressful. But then I watched it back, because I recorded the game today and I watched it back, and I was watching it with my dad and my brothers a little bit earlier on. And I was just like, why was I so nervous? Like, often when you watch these things back, you feel totally different. Of course, you know the outcome, which helps, but sometimes you look at it and you go, well, actually, we weren't really under that much pressure, were we? We restricted them to long-distance shots, whipping balls into the penalty area that you would trust Saliba and Gabriel to deal with every single day of the week. And David Raya seems far more assured nowadays, I think, in every single thing that he does. And so you felt, watching it back at least, pretty good about it. A lot more comfortable than I did at the time, but that's the emotion getting the better of you. It's not something different in terms of what you're seeing. It's just that emotionally it's different. Big shout out to the main man, Clive Palmer, who is in the live chat. Good evening, Clive. Good to see you, mate. I haven't actually listened to the Arsenal Vision pod yet today. I'm looking forward to taking that in on my way to work, the instant reaction one. Check out the Arsenal Vision pod if you haven't done so already. I'm sure you have, though. Check it out. And I look forward to listening in to you guys' analysis as well. So, yeah. Okay, we're going to take a really, really short pause. When we come back, we are going to discuss some individual performances. We're going to run through the team and we're going to talk through each of the individuals, what we made of their performances. And I will revisit the live chat for some of your questions towards the end of the stream. But before we do that, seeing as we're on the subject of brilliant defensive performances, I'll tell you what else can deliver a very, very good defensive performance when it comes to you browsing online. That is, of course, NordVPN. Yes, NordVPN is the best VPN service out there. Of course, it is something that I use on a regular basis. I would not sit here and tell you how good it is if it wasn't something that I knew inside out, and if it wasn't something that I use on a real regular basis. I've been using NordVPN for probably about 2 years now, 2.5 years, and there are so many benefits that come with it that for the price it's available at, I just think it's a complete no-brainer. NordVPN is a VPN service that not only offers you protection when you're browsing online, shopping online, streaming online, downloading things, etc., etc., but it allows you also to change your geolocation with the click of a button, which is really, really important for those of us that like to take in content from overseas or who are maybe traveling a lot. So you get that extra peace of mind because of the protection element, but you also get that incredible ability, as I say, to flip your location. And what that means, guys, is that if you want to access content that isn't available in the UK and isn't available in another territory, you can flick your territory to that territory with the click of a button. So you're essentially there, but you're not there, if you like. You're virtually there. That's the term I was looking for. And that allows you to stream things that aren't available here in the UK. Now, I use it a lot to watch Greek football because I've got a paid subscription for a Greek football service that I can't access in the UK normally. So NordVPN helps me to access that by selecting my location as Greece or Cyprus. Also, in addition to that, it allows me to use it on all sorts of different devices, tablets, laptops, iPhones, and you can use the same account throughout your household as well, which is great. There's an exclusive deal out there now available to Chronicles of a Gooner listeners. You get a mega discount and 4 months extra at the end of your plan if you sign up now. Click on the link in the description. It's nordvpn.com/Chronicles AFC. And with that, you can sign up and make the most of that offer. nordvpn.com/Chronicles AFC. It's a brilliant service, I promise you. If anyone's got any questions about it, because I know a couple of our listeners that signed up the last time they were supporting the pod reached out to me directly. Big shout out to Graham, who reached out to me directly, and I talked him through what works or how it works for me and why I use it. And I know that Graham is a regular user of it now. So if it's something you want a bit more information on, feel free to reach out. Okay. Let's go through then some of those individual performances. Let me just have a quick glance at the live chat for a minute. In fact, let me touch on a few of your comments before I continue, before I push forward. Just a quick reminder, though, that if you haven't done so already, please do leave a like on the video, guys. I want to get to 500 likes on this video. That would be amazing. We're on about 200 at the moment. I know a load of you are going to watch this back after. But the more likes we can get on the board during the live stream, the better. What have we got here? Lots of you discussing the Timber challenge. I'm sticking to my guns on that. I don't even think it was a foul. Genuinely. I don't think it was even a foul. But hey. Michael Gordon says, I thought Gabriel was a titan, a masterpiece performance. I completely agree with that. Keith Bird says he had Timber as the man of the match until the goal. Goon Gang says, did Benjamin White's pocketing of Heung-min Son go under the radar? I got to be honest. In fact, let me park that for a minute because I'm going to run through my list of individuals that I want to discuss, but we'll get to Ben White very, very shortly. Let's start with David Raya, who was celebrating his birthday today, by the way. Happy birthday, David. Same birthday as my little girl. Just so much more assured these days, isn't he? He does everything with immense confidence, and he comes and claims things and catches things, and his distribution is better. At times today, I think David Raya played the game rather than being sort of limited to following the manager's instructions to a T. And what I mean by that is that there were situations today where David Raya might have played out from the back in under normal circumstances in a different game, where he might have taken a risk, where he might have tried something a little bit more elaborate. But instead, I think he kind of recognized where we were, who we were up against, what we had running through the rest of the team. And he just decided that he was going to play the game rather than allow the habits that you develop in training to kind of really take hold and potentially put the team at risk. I don't think he felt that he could play the ball into Partey and Jorginho in this instance, on this occasion, on this day. And I'm happy about that because I do think, in an ideal world, you've got your game plan and you stick to it and you do it as much as possible and all of that jazz. But it's actually really good, I think, to be able to recognize where maybe that's not going to work and have the kind of the trust of the manager, but also the confidence in your own ability to maybe figure it out yourself. And that's what I really liked about David Raya's performance today. Ben White, I want to talk about. I didn't think Ben White was that good today, if I'm being honest with you. I thought in the second half he was much improved, but there were a couple of moments in the first period where he wasn't defending great, in my view. Obviously, you have your hands full when you're facing Heung-min Son. He's a good player as much as we mock him. He hasn't won anything, but he's a good player. And then you've got Destiny Udogie as well coming down that left-hand side. And to be honest with you, he had his hands full at times. I think Saka supported him really, really well. But it wasn't just that some of the defensive actions for me with Ben White. Sometimes he was really sloppy on the ball. And I mentioned that moment in the first half where he gifted Dominic Solanke a chance after Spurs forced the turnover following his poor pass. And then, of course, there was a couple of other instances where there was one where he went to control the ball and it kind of slipped under his foot and went out for a throw-in. He wasn't great. Look, Ben White is a fantastic defender. And most weeks, he's an 8 out of 10. There's no question about that. He had a bit of an off day today, but fortunately, we had enough in and around him to get by. The centre-halves were magnificent, as they always seem to be these days. And although William Saliba is the one that always gets the plaudits and always gets, the praise, I think today's Gabriel's day, right? Big Gabby scores the winner, which is really, really important, obviously. and he rises like a salmon and he powers the header in from close range. There was accusations flying around at the time that maybe he had fouled Romero. Come on, man. These are two big old centre-halves. Are we going that soft? Has the game gone that soft? Seriously, not a foul. No way. Ridiculous. And also, some very eagle-eyed Arsenal supporters online managed to find a picture of Mickey van der Ven holding one of our players in that same set piece. So if you want to call that a foul, then maybe you have to call that a foul. And actually, we should have had a penalty if you want to go down that route. But yeah, big Gabby. I mean, I'll make you guys laugh. Earlier today, hopefully I can show you this before my my battery dies because I'm on 1% on my phone. But I was doing my my player rate, not player ratings, but during a game I kind of put down notes that I then use for the kind of match day reaction pod over on our Patreon. And when Gabby scored the winning goal, well, what went on to be the winning goal, this is what I put. I don't know if you can see that. I didn't bother writing any description of the goal. I don't think you can see it. I don't think the camera will focus on it. But basically what I wrote was big effing Gabby because I was just buzzing. And that's what he does. He pops up. He dominates aerially, but he was also immense defensively. Look, Saliba was too. Saliba struggled a tiny little bit at the beginning of the game, and I know that some people felt that Gary Neville's analysis of him in the early stages was a little bit harsh. I do think he struggled a little bit physically in the first maybe 5-10 minutes, but once he kind of acclimatized to the game, to the conditions, to the opposition that he was up against, I think he was fine after that. But he did have a few minutes, in my view, where he was a little bit rocky and shaky. I say rocky and shaky, that's by William Saliba standards, because his standards are so high. Any time where he looks like he might come out second best in a duel, you're like, whoa, what's going on with William today? But generally, his game was very, very good. Gabriel, though, another level today. Jurrien Timber, I thought was great. I thought it was fantastic. I thought he had a really, really good game. I thought it suited him that he didn't have to constantly go into that midfield because of the shape of the team and the shape of our midfield with Jorginho and Partey sitting in there. It wasn't a requirement necessarily. It was something that he had the license to do if he wanted to, but not something that he had to do constantly as a major part of our build-up. And I think that suited him. Made some good runs down the left-hand side, got involved in some nice bits of play, and defensively was very, very solid. He had to contend with Brennan Johnson's pace at times, and I thought he kept up with him well. And I think with each passing week, Jurrien Timber's looking better and better. But if he is going to play left-back, I think he's far better suited to playing that more conventional left-back role than he is the Zinchenko role, if you like, where you've got to go in sometimes and then step back out. I think not because he's not technically gifted enough or capable. I just think that it's I don't know how to put it. Like I just think that for me, yeah, I mean, there's no point in trying to overanalyze this. I just thought he looked way more comfortable playing that more conventional fullback role. Because this is a guy who has played fullback before, not necessarily on the left-hand side, but on the right-hand side. And so if you play him on his wrong side and you're saying to him, okay, it's a role that you've played before. It's a role that you know quite well. Not your primary role, but it's a role that you've played quite well. Now I'm going to flip you onto the other side and you say to him, go and do it. Then all he's got to think about is how he's going to manage certain situations because he's on his wrong foot. Whereas if you move him over to the left and then you say, oh, but actually, you're not playing as a left back. You're going to play this inverted role, this slightly hybrid role between a midfielder and a left back. Then all of a sudden, what he's learned at right back isn't as relevant in the kind of transition that he's making. So, yeah, I think that for me, he looks way more comfortable playing in that, conventional fullback role. And as a left back, even though it's his wrong side, he looked incredibly comfortable today. And I was really, really pleased with his performance. Jorginho and Partey, I want to talk about these two as a pair because they were that today. They needed to kind of hold each other's hands through the game, I felt. Not literally, but sort of, in terms of the way we're sort of analysing the game, I think it's right to put them into the same category. It's right to group them together. Because I thought both of them sat in areas where, they could protect their defence. There wasn't really a willingness at certain stages in the game to go hunting for the ball, and I like that because I don't think that either of them are particularly good at that nowadays. And so for me, the way they approached it was right. be in the right position. There were a couple of occasions where Jorginho went chasing into areas that he probably shouldn't have, and he struggled to recover. And the same maybe with Thomas Partey in the first half as well. But generally, I thought both of them sat in the positions that they were required to. They didn't get on the ball as much as they would have liked, I don't think. Both of them are very good ball progressors with it at their feet. But I think we took a conscious decision as a team today to try and bypass that phase on occasions, because we maybe knew that deep down we didn't have the athleticism to match what Spurs had, and we maybe couldn't afford to take those risks. So yeah, I quite like the way that we approached that as a team today. And those guys, I don't think they were great, especially Jorginho. I think Jorginho had moments where he looked like he was struggling, but the guy is a leader. The guy came in and captained the side, and when you captain the side to a victory like that, you've had a good day, right? So let's leave it at that. We all know what Jorginho's limitations are, so I guess I get a little bit frustrated when people start bringing him up and saying, yeah, but Jorginho can't do this and he can't do... We knew that. We knew that before he played today. And we also know that had everybody else been available, he wouldn't have played. But he comes in today having not played a single minute of competitive football this season and does a job like that. Praise the guy, give him his flowers, he deserves them. And yeah, we all know what the limitations are. Let's not obsess over them. Let's give him his props for the work that he did today. Kai Havertz, I thought was fan-fucking-tastic. I thought he was brilliant today. Brilliant. Everything that he needed to do, he did well. He wasn't exactly gifted lots of opportunities. He wasn't... I don't want to say it in a bad way, but like he wasn't enjoying himself. It wasn't like Kai Havertz, go out there, run wild, do what you want to do. You got a free roll in the midfield off the front of Leandro Trossard. Go and do what you want to do. He had a lot of responsibility today. And when we wanted to go direct and when we wanted to go long, he had to step further forward and be the one that we'd aim at times because of his aerial ability. There were times where he dropped deeper to support the midfield. There were times where he would hold the ball up and bring others into the game. He did that really, really well. There was a situation, I think it was in the lead up to the goal, where he did really well to get to a ball ahead of Van der Ven. And everybody sort of was raving about Van der Ven and the way that he had managed to hold the attack up. And then Saka went and got his shot blocked in the corner. And then the corner came about after that and we scored from that. So, yeah. Look, just remember with Kai Havertz, this is what I'm going to say on Kai Havertz today, because I wax lyrical about this guy every week, so I think he's genuinely one of the most important players in our team. But this is what I'll say. Just remember that when we signed Kai Havertz, there were people, even in this chat box, listeners of this podcast, whom I have immense respect for, but there were people who said, we shouldn't have got Kai Havertz, we should have got, wait for it, James Bleeding Maddison. How did he play today? So sometimes, guys, we have to just take a step back and trust. Sometimes we have to take a step back and say, this guy, Mikel Arteta, along with Edu and everybody else at the football club, has taken us forward. Forward, 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 forward. Just give them the benefit of the doubt with some of these deals, because more often than not, we come out looking great. And this is what's happened with Kai Havertz. Just so important to this team. Trossard, I thought he had some good moments. I don't think he's particularly comfortable playing in that position, regardless of what Mikel Arteta maybe says in public. But he had to do a job today, and he did it to a good enough standard. I was relatively okay with his performance. Martinelli, that's another one that divided opinion. A lot of people were criticising his lack of end product, I guess. And look, you can absolutely 100% make that point. You know, he does struggle at times to produce that finish that you need, or the final pass that you need, or sometimes his decision making is wrong. I accept all of that when you talk about Gabriel Martinelli. But if you're going to analyse his performance fairly, you have to factor in all the good things he does as well. The way he supports the fullback, the way he gets back, the way that when we lose possession, he's one of the first people to start a sprint. And he doesn't care how far back he's got to go. He'll sprint all the way back to the edge of his 6-yard box if he needs to. That work ethic and that commitment from Gabriel Martinelli is a big part of why he's in the team, even when he's not having the best time in front of goal. So, yes, you can talk about what he doesn't deliver in the final third, and probably should. And I completely agree with that. But if you want to be well-rounded and fair in your analysis of him, you have to then highlight the other side of his game, which was very, very impressive. And the same can be said of Bukayo Saka. Didn't have that moment today, Bukayo Saka, where, he stepped up and won you the game or anything like that. But, did he take the corner? I think he took the corner. So he did play some part in us winning the game. But the point I'm trying to make here is that what you get is, even when we're not at our best, what you get is incredible work rate, work ethic from this team. And I'm going to finish the show the way I kind of started it. And while I do that, get some questions in the live chat, please. And I'll take 3 or 4 of those before I go. But I kind of want to end my monologue bit by saying what I said at the beginning. This wasn't a story of Arsenal turning up and outplaying the opposition. This was a story of unity, commitment, togetherness, organisation. All of that stuff was clearly on display today from this Arsenal team. And that's why I'm super proud. Was it our best display? No, it wasn't. Nobody would even try and sort of peddle that narrative. But what we can say is that we were very, very committed, very well organised, and we defended professionally. Not just the back four, who were outstanding in their own right, but everybody in that team. Everybody in that team does a job. Everybody in that team takes care of one another. Everybody in that team has got each other's back. We turned up at Spurs with no midfield. We had to adapt. We defended well for each other, worked for each other. And in the end, we got what that committed display, in my opinion, deserved. One last thing I just want to touch on before I come to your questions. I can see a few of them coming through. Just put a Q at the beginning of your question. It really does help me to pick them out from the chat box. Ange Postecoglou's post-match interview. Has anyone seen that? Surely you've seen that. There's clips of it going around. I'm certain that you've seen it. Ange Postecoglou said last season that he wins things, or I normally win things in my second season, is what he said. And Emma Saunders, who was interviewing him, said, do you still believe that, you can win something in your second season? And he said, I'll correct myself. Basically, I'll go back on what I said previously. I don't usually win things. I always win things. Nothing's changed. I'm sure there was a mate in there somewhere as well. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make is, why the hell would the Tottenham Hotspur manager set himself up for that? Like, why would you put yourself in a position where that is going to go around and around and around and around and around every single time that you crash out of a competition? You're not going to win the Premier League. You might win the Europa League. You're certainly capable of winning the Europa League, I guess. But would I back this really naive Tottenham side to play some of the continent's best and get away with it? No, I wouldn't. I think that they will really be put to tough examination. The Europa League's much tougher than it used to be. Will they win one of the domestic cups? How can you say that with any degree of certainty? So I just find it strange, actually, that Ange Postecoglou puts himself in these positions so that people can basically mock him. Just doesn't make any sense to me. Right, let's take some of your questions. Just before I do that, one final thing. Check out the Patreon page, patreon.com/The Chronicles of a Gooner. You can check out our match day reaction show from earlier today if you are interested, and you'd be supporting the podcast and doing me a massive, massive favour, which I really appreciate. You'd also be part of our Patreon community. NordVPN, check them out, nordvpn.com/Chronicles AFC. You can get a mega discount, 4 months free at the end of your plan if you sign up using our code. I've explained what the benefits are. Check it out for yourselves. And like the video, guys. Can we get to 300 likes by the time the stream ends? Then I'd be really confident of hitting that 500 like target. Anyway, just Matt on that Postecoglou thing says that interview was wild. It really was, wasn't it? Keith Bird says, Harry, what did you think of Tottenham? Shh, I can't say it. I'll be demonetized. But yeah, you know what I think of them. Jonathan says, remind me what it's like to lose away. We haven't lost away in 2024 in the Premier League. It's pretty impressive when you think about some of the places we've been as well. First time since 1987 that we've managed 3 consecutive wins away against them, according to Nostradamus. it's pretty remarkable that we've managed that. Here's another stat for you. We have now won more games at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, which opened, 4 years ago, than Spurs have won at the Emirates, which opened back in 2006. So, yeah. Galvo says, do you see, I beg your pardon, any rotation for Thursday night with such a short turnaround for Sunday? I do. I do. I think there's a chance Jesus starts. I think there's a chance Sterling starts. I think I'd stick with the same centre-halves and goalkeeper, and I don't think we've got that much choice in the midfield. I'd probably bring Declan Rice in because he didn't play today. I would back him to play those 2 games, Thursday and Sunday, without any issues. So, yeah, I think I would make a few changes. But you've got to be careful, haven't you? We talk about the need to rotate this season and why Mikel Arteta probably needs to really get a hold of that and do that better than he perhaps has done in the past. But there's also a balance that you need to find. Like, you can't go and rotate like 7 or 8 players. I don't even think we've got that many to be able to rotate from right now. But if you rotate too much, you can lose what's good about your side, and you can lose that base that is obviously really important, and you don't necessarily want to do that. I know that we've got plenty more Champions League games to recover if this doesn't go our way, but you'd like to get off to a good start, wouldn't you? And, Mikel Arteta, from what we know of him in the past, believes that winning is a habit, and wins breed wins, and I don't think he'll turn up in Bergamo with a weak side, kind of quietly okay with not taking maximum points. It's a game that he'll go out to win for sure. I'm just going to pick a few more. Wesbird says, Harry, considering we are very thin on the bench, although Rice will be available again, what's your thoughts on our lineup for the CL game, and what impact will that have on the City game? I've just kind of touched on that, so I won't go into that again, but we are going to do a preview show, obviously, of the Atalanta game, in which we will discuss the lineup in a lot more detail. Lemonade says, I think if we had signed Maddison over Havertz, we could have made him look better than Havertz. Almost any player we sign is going to improve under Arteta. Havertz is not a striker of the highest level. He was playing in midfield today for a lot of the game. Yeah, he went into that kind of front two at times, but Kai Havertz is just such an amazing weapon, because as I called him, maybe midway through last season on one of my episodes, he's a Swiss Army knife of a player, and that's why he's more valuable than James Maddison, who's an okay/decent attacking midfielder, but isn't really any more than that. Flashlight Junkie says, what's your opinion on Martinelli? What happened to him? I've touched on this already tonight as well. I agree that the output is not there from Martinelli at the moment, and the end product is not there, and even the decision making is lacking at this moment in time. But what I will say is that I think it gives you so much in terms of work rate and all the other things that we discussed, that's probably part of why he's in the team. Big shout out to Mohammed, who's joining us live as well from Palestine. Good to see you in the live chat, my friend. Let me take one more. Cesar says, would you play a similar playing style against Manchester City? I personally think that you need a bit more about you against City going forward, because if you don't have that, you feel like Tottenham at times were able to pin us back. Well, Man City will do that to a far better degree, and obviously they've got way more threat than Tottenham do. Like I looked at that Tottenham side, like Dominic Solanke, £65 million, really? Like, he's an okay forward, and he made a couple of tackles in the first half, and everybody was jumping up and down. Oh, Dominic Solanke's been brilliant in his first home game. I didn't really see it, to be honest. He looked committed, but did he have that killer instinct? I think you saw later on in the game that he probably doesn't. Him among all the other Tottenham players too, who also lack in that department, I feel. So, yeah, I can't even remember what the question was now that I was answering. It was, the playing style one, that's the one. No, I'd try and be a bit more forward-thinking against City, because I just think if you get pinned back the way we were by Spurs at times today, City are way more capable of picking you off and hurting you and scoring goals. I don't think you can afford to let them suffocate you. With Spurs, they're kind of like half suffocating you, but they're never going to squeeze hard enough to make you pass out, basically. Weird analogy, but you get where I'm going with that. Do I think Nwaneri will start on Thursday? I don't know. I think he looked really comfortable when he came on today. Really comfortable, like really confident on the ball. I liked that moment where obviously he came on and it was kind of like, well, no, let Jesus go on the right. And I don't know if that was something that Jesus decided or if it was something that was passed on by the coaching staff. But it seemed like he just kind of said, you go and sit in the middle, mate, and I will make sure that I go out on that right-hand side. I will take responsibility. I'll give Ben White a hand. And I really like that because it showed leadership and stuff. Okay, guys, I think I am going to leave it there because I am absolutely knackered. It's the truth of it. It's 10 p.m. on this Sunday evening. Hope you've all had a great day having seen Arsenal win a third away North London derby on the bounce. We move up to second. It sets up next weekend's game with Manchester City really, really nicely for the neutrals. And for us, maybe, just maybe, we'll be able to enjoy it a little bit. Because even if we did lose, and I'm not saying that that's what we should be going there hoping for or wanting, it probably wouldn't be the end of the world. Now that we've won at Spurs, we've been to Villa, we've been to Spurs, we've played Brighton, tricky opponents as well. And we're in a pretty good position as things stand. And, hopefully we can get a couple of players back at least before the game at the Etihad next week. We're not going to get Martin Odegaard back. I don't personally think. I'll be shocked if he plays at Manchester City next week. I wouldn't put it past him, but I just don't see it happening. So for me, it's kind of like, can you get one or two more back? And, we're obviously going to have Rice back, but can you get one or two more back in the squad just to build that out a little bit and give us a better chance? And we'll see what happens on the day. But as I say, thank you all so much for joining me. Remember to leave a like on the video if you're watching us on YouTube. If you're listening on audio, please leave us a review. It really, really does help. And I'll be back tomorrow with an episode where we'll focus on some element of this game. I'm not sure what just yet. I'm about 3/4 of the way through my watch back, so I'm sure I'll come up with something to talk about over the next 24 hours or so. But yeah, make sure you subscribe to all the rest of it. Check out our Patreon, check out NordVPN. A big thank you to all the lovely people in the chat who wished my little girl a happy birthday today as well. She's 3 years old today. She brought us a bit of luck on North London Derby Day. I guess that excuses me from the fact that I disappeared for a few hours. I mean, look, I went to give her a massive hug after the game because I was kind of celebrating and she got scared of me because I was so animated. But hey, it is what it is. I'll see you all on the next one. Until then, take care of yourselves. Have a great evening. Goodbye.